start with Manchester United then. Where else to start? They are exploring the possibility of signing the Burnley forward, Wout Weghorst, on loan. The Netherlands international is currently on loan at Besiktas, and it's thought that United have made initial contact with Burnley to find out if a deal is possible. The deal is slightly complicated because it would require both Burnley and Besiktas to agree to cut short his current loan. Nabeed, this is a player you were waxing lyrical about this time last year when he was joining Burnley on loan.
We loved it. We've backed it again. Wout Weghorst, the 6'6" giant. We don't know for sure if he's coming back. I just want to put that out there. But if he does, I'll be very happy about this, because we were literally sat here a year ago and we were sort of going, what a signing it would be for Burnley. Now, that obviously didn't work out before. United fans are sat there saying, well, it didn't work for Burnley. But Burnley did get relegated that season. It was very difficult at the time for Wout Weghorst to sort of bed himself into a side that weren't playing very well. He now comes into a Manchester United side that, or could be coming into a Manchester United side, that are playing very well. A lot of people are going 6'6" striker. That's not really Ten Hag style. His pressing numbers are actually outstanding, and I couldn't wait to type in Wout Weghorst pressing numbers, because I knew people would go, he can't press. When actually, in actual fact, in his first 2 seasons in Bundesliga, he had the best pressing numbers and successful presses. So I feel like it makes a lot of sense.
What's he done at Besiktas? Because I think a lot of people will look at, I suppose, the player that they saw at Burnley.
Well, first of all, if you've seen the clips going around, he's built a real, genuine sort of affiliation and affection from the fans, and I think overall his performances have been very, very good. So I think in that sense his most current form is good. His form in the top 5 European leagues, obviously at Wolfsburg and Burnley, 138 games, 61 goals and 22 assists. It just feels like it makes a lot of sense for United to go for what probably is a cut price option, a cheaper forward. Carl's not agreeing.
I'm looking at the stats and I'm hearing all of this, and I do agree, when we were talking about him last year, what a great sign it was for Burnley. When it comes to Manchester United, when it comes to the Champions League, when it comes to the Premier League, when it comes to winning trophies, where Manchester United want to be, is this the calibre of striker that is going to do that? We've been talking so much about Cristiano Ronaldo and obviously his departure from Manchester United, but that was a world-class player. That was one of the best, if not the best. People will argue that still now, or maybe there's no argument, players to ever play the sport. Cristiano Ronaldo has left, and they might replace him with Wout Weghorst. Great striker, the numbers speak for themselves, great at pressing, we understand that. But is this actually the striker that Manchester United need if they want to be competing with the likes of Liverpool, competing with the likes of Manchester City, Tottenham even, who've got incredible strikers?
Yeah. I think it's just a short-term fix, isn't it? Because they were over budget in the summer. They spent more than they planned to, so they don't really want to go out there in January, which is a difficult market anyway, and overspend on getting a forward player in. They've made mistakes in the past. They want to get the right player in now. So I think for a short-term signing, I think it actually suits Manchester United. I think it probably suits Burnley as well, because they've got a player there who's probably not got a long-term future at the club. If he does well for Manchester United, his value is boosted by being at Manchester United rather than playing in Turkey. So I think Burnley will probably be quite keen to get this one done as well. Manchester United need to do something, and I think as a short-term striker, his stock's probably risen a little bit during the World Cup as well, because he had that cameo where he came on and scored a couple of goals. I just think if they're going to do something, he was actually probably the kind of striker I expected, and he's probably more fit for purpose than Ronaldo was.
But before we came on air, you were sort of reeling off the strikers that Manchester United have signed in the last sort of 5+ years. And it kind of fits in with what they've been doing in that time period. Yeah,
they've made a name for themselves, really, making signings like this guy. Look at some of those signings that they've signed that are over 30. I think since they've signed Lukaku, which I believe was 2017, and unless I've got that wrong, the only real strikers, genuine centre-forwards they've bought in have been over 30, which probably tells you a lot about the scattergun approach of Manchester United's transfer policy. They haven't managed to get in that guy. You can't knock them for buying Lukaku at the time. I think that was probably a big signing. Everyone expected him to be a success, and he wasn't. But Manchester United, it's been a long time since they got in that long-term centre-forward, and I think this signing will probably be the last you see of them bringing in a striker over 30. I think the next forward they bring in will be the long-term option that the Manchester United fans have wanted for so long.
Just to say, those were the ages of the strikers when they joined Manchester United. So they're all older than that now. It feels like every single window we sit here and we're talking about strikers. it's almost like every club needs a striker every window, isn't it?
Yeah, including Manchester United. And I think one thing we've got to say about the strikers they have brought in, yes, the ages, and you can highlight that and look at that, but they have done a good enough job for what Manchester United needed in that moment. And it does feel like they have got some young forwards that everyone will talk about. Marcus Rashford, you've got Martial as well. Jadon Sancho was a name that people were talking about to bring in for Manchester United, and it feels like they've managed to bring in those youngsters. They've had them, they've been quite successful, but they haven't had that young striker that has done the same as other clubs have done. Look at Erling Haaland at Manchester City. Everyone talks about his numbers. Look at Nunez at Liverpool. Look at Harry Kane. Obviously, he's not young anymore at Tottenham, but these are all strikers that score goals, and they're key for all of their clubs. Manchester United haven't got that. Now, Eric Ten Hag, he said he wants to bring in a forward following obviously the departure of Cristiano Ronaldo, but only if the right player is available. But looking at the players that they've been linked to, I mean, the Daily Mail early January, they said that Manchester United have reached out over a potential move to AC Milan for Olivier Giroud. Is that a long-term fix? No. Another short-term fix. Another name, Dusan Vlahovic. We were talking about him so much last summer. He's reportedly interested in moving to Manchester United from Juventus. I mean, that's from early January as well. Another name, Morata, another striker that everyone will be looking at. Again, not a long-term fix for Manchester United, another short-term fix. And I just think for Manchester United fans, if they're looking at the future of their club, where they hopefully can start to get back to under Eric Ten Hag, is winning trophies. And that's what we've all grown up seeing Manchester United do, with some great some strikers that have come to the Premier League, and you could argue they're the best the Premier League's ever seen. Manchester United should be looking at that if they want to be competing with, as I've said, Liverpool, with Tottenham, with Chelsea, with Manchester City, because currently they've got the squad that could be doing that, but they need to make sure that there's not a gap between all of those clubs and Man United.
It's about who's available, though, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think they're trying to rectify previous mistakes. So United have spent a little bit of time getting rid of players they don't want anymore. I think they come into this window and they might go, let's go and spend money on a striker we're not overly convinced on, because we desperately need someone right now. But then you're in the same situation that they've been in the past, where you get someone who's really expensive, you then have to try and ship him off to bring in the next person. I actually think going for a stopgap who's going to get you 7, 8, 9 goals before the end of the season, you still give time to Martial, and I think that's kind of held them back. They spent 60 million on Martial, and I think they've constantly been in the situation where they've gone, he could come good, he could come good, and then you can't go and buy another 21, 22, 23-year-old for 60, 70 million again. On top of that, they've also had, they need to buy a centre-back, still need to buy a right-back potentially, they need to buy a central midfielder, they need to buy a right winger. With all those things combined, I think the striker has just fallen further down the pecking order. Rashford's been injured as well. They might eventually play him through the middle. So I don't feel like just going and getting someone will be the fix. And I think the fact that they were apparently close to Cody Gakpo and decided not to go for him, tells you Ten Hag wants the exact right profile at the exact right time. And to be fair, we've sat here and we've praised Liverpool for doing that time and time again. So I feel like we're so used to United going and getting big names that it probably gets to a point where you have to say they want to improve their transfer strategy, and this might be the way to do it.
Yeah, we are asking you on Twitter, by the way, should Manchester United sign Wout Weghorst, yes or no? Over 11,000 votes so far. 60% of you at the moment are saying yes. If you haven't voted, head over to the Sky Sports News Twitter account and have your say. Just before we move on from Manchester United, Nabeed, I wanted to ask you, there's this sort of continued talk around Joao Felix. We know he's a player that Arsenal have been linked to as well. Is that the kind of player that United need?
I personally I just don't see how he fits in at United, because he's one of these sort of like forwards that wants to drop in, pick the ball up, be involved in the game heavily. Is that a little bit too similar to maybe someone like Martial, plays left to right as well? And then you've also got Bruno Fernandes in the side, who also wants to pick the ball up deeper and make things happen. So I feel profile-wise, he's actually better suited to Arsenal. I know there's the argument about they've got Martinelli, they've got Jesus, Eddie Nketiah, Saka. If they get Mudryk, then I'd probably change my stance on that and say you probably don't need another forward. But if Mudryk's going to cost 80 million plus, Joao Felix is probably a slightly better fix when you haven't got Jesus at the moment. So I think he's better suited to Arsenal. But if United get stuck and they don't get a striker and you have to get someone through the door for 6 months, I'm not completely against the idea of Joao Felix.